In this episode of Growing Your Sense of Self Through Self-Defense, I'm going to talk about internal and external realities. Each of us has our own internal reality. It's defined by our sense perceptions, which are directed by our sense of self. And for each of us, our internal reality is different from the external reality. It's less complete, and it differs in some other ways to varying extents. Now, the fullness of your life, the authenticity that you can live, is directly proportional to how well your internal reality is aligned with external reality. In areas where you believe something, especially if you want to believe it's true, but it isn't true, and there's a disconnect, in that part of your life, you're living a lie. The more disconnected you are, your beliefs are, your reality is, from external reality, the more lies that you're living, the less authentic your life, the less full your life. So the goal is to try to align those two as much as we can. We're not born with that. We have to develop our sense perceptions and then our sense of self to direct our perceptions, our sense perceptions. Now, centuries ago, everybody, scientists and laymen, believed that the earth was flat and the sun and the moon and the stars and the planets all revolved around the earth. They absolutely knew this was true. You could see it, it's common sense. But they were absolutely wrong. The lesson to learn there is, hold what you believe to be true tentatively. And when data, what some people call stubborn facts, come up that are not aligned with what you believe to be true, then your responsibility is to, if those facts cannot be denied, then to modify your belief system so that they incorporate those facts. So let's consider some more contemporary examples. And I'll say this about the misalignment between reality, internal and external. It is probably the single biggest tell for a low sense of self, for the strength of one's sense of self. The more disconnected they are, the stronger the tell that there is a lower sense of self. So contemporary cases. So this may be someone you know, maybe it's you. So let's consider a person who is an addict, maybe to alcohol, an alcoholic, or some other drug, in denial about it. So no, I don't have a drinking problem. No. Well, the stubborn facts are, you've been arrested multiple times for DUI. You have issues in your home life with family members because of this substance. It's impacting your work. You're coming in late or not doing as good a job because of what the substance is doing to you. So, an addict, addictions, are traits of a person with a low sense of self. They are a form of escaping from an unpleasant internal reality. So you seek to find these outlets, they help me feel better, or more focused this, or whatever else that, through addictions to whether they're substances or other things. Those are escapes. But you're disconnected from reality, right? The stubborn facts do not align with what you claim to be the case. Another case, a woman who says, yeah, my husband's a good man. And the stubborn facts are, yeah, he beats you regularly. He has multiple affairs. He sexually molests your daughters. But he's a good man. The serious unhealthiness in that relationship is a symptom of a serious unhealthiness that the person has with themselves. That's a low sense of self indicator. And there's a disconnect between reality external and reality internal. Or a parent who says, my boy's a good boy, my son's a good boy. And the stubborn facts are, the son dropped out of school, he got a teenage girl pregnant, he has numerous arrests for crimes that he did commit. So there's another case where the external reality, the undeniable facts, are at odds with the belief that the person has, their internal reality of my son's being a good boy. That disconnect is an indicator, the major tell, of a low sense of self. The fact that they parented a child that got into that state is another indicator of a low sense of self. And, no surprise, the boy became irresponsible, disrespectful, uncaring of others. Yeah, they passed that on, and that's what the son got. It doesn't have to be that extreme. It could be more subtle. I'm an honest person. And then the stubborn facts are when I tell a story about something I was engaged in, I might leave out some pieces that may put me in a bad light as I share the story with you, so you are less likely to look askance at me. I may leave out some facts completely, and that's dishonesty. Well, I'm an honest person. Or I have high integrity. I'm a person with high integrity. And if I see or hear or read something that is aligned with what I believe, yeah, that's true. I believe that. But if it's not aligned, it's like it didn't happen, I didn't ever heard it, didn't see it. That's not high integrity. That's a disconnect between reality and your internal state. Now, there's ways to grow the sense of self. I talked about 3 in the introductory seminar. The first one being the well-known one, the talk therapy, and I talked about the serious limitations in that approach. The second one I mentioned was the bottoms-up generic approach, where you take traits of a low sense of self person that may be in you and move them over to become traits of a high sense of self person, that you can become then a high sense of self person. And the third one is what we're doing in this program, use of self-defense, certain type of self-defense, to grow the sense of self. Now, there is a limitation I did not talk about in that second approach, and that is it sort of rests on having sufficient tools that you can use that approach to grow the low sense of self traits, or at least somewhat low sense of self traits, and make them stronger, the traits that are of a stronger sense of self person. And let me give an analogy to help explain that. If I had a knife, a steel knife that was kind of dull, but I had a rock, I can use that rock and sharpen up that knife and get a nice razor kind of edge on it. But if I started with a ball of steel and that same rock, trying to get that ball of steel to a sharp edge is probably impossible. If it's not, it's taken an awful lot of work. It's a similar thing if you have a very low sense of self. To try that second approach, say for instance, I want to be more accepting of reality. I want to be, whatever's out there, I want to be able to embrace, incorporate. Well, it takes a level of courage to be able to say, well, I'm going to give up what it is that I'm holding. Whereas the low sense of self, they're in need of control. They're not so willing to let things go that they've got their hands around. So it takes courage, it takes confidence that I can find, all right, this data undercut what I thought was the case, I need to build something out of that. Can I do it? Well, not if I don't have a lot of confidence in my abilities to do those kinds of things, which is another trait that a person with a low sense of self tends to lack. So there's a series of others. So if you're coming in on a low sense of self, you're not going to be able to just move things by acting. I'm afraid. Trait of a low sense of self. Well, if you're afraid, be accepting of reality, then you're not going to be accepting of reality. There's too many things in the way to get there. So you need some base to start with, that then you can then sharpen those tools and you can move whatever those traits are. You say, I wish I was stronger in this way. Yeah, okay, you got enough of a base, you can move them over. If you do this program, growing your sense of self through self-defense, the third way I talked about for growing a sense of self, yeah, you build that base. When you watch the physical episodes and you see people engage, especially people who don't have a self-defense background, you can see, it is very clear that these people are getting it, that they are experiencing the holistic nurturing that happens when you participate in these type of physical exercises, the physical episodes that are done. If you put yourself into that, if you actually do the episodes, you get a taste of that. That it is real, that you are holistically nurtured, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, that you are embraced and valued as a person in total, that you tap into the Superman powers that are within you. You see those, you experience those, and that is real. And that internal reality of these things matches the external reality. This is undeniable. When you get into those, and now you are aligned. And in those moments, when your internal reality and your external reality are fully aligned in these ways, in those moments, you are living fully and authentically. And you build on those moments, and you have more of those moments. You do more episodes, you build on those more. And when you start building more of these moments, you start growing the sense of self. And those moments become continual. And you get to a point where your life is fuller and more authentic. And that's the goal of this program. Thank you for your time. Kamsahamnida. Till next time, toodles.